I'm 29 years old, and I finally did it. I bought my first house. You know that feeling when you've worked towards something for so long that when it actually happens, it doesn't feel real? That's exactly how I felt standing in my empty living room, holding the keys in my hand. 4 years of saving every penny, living in a cramped studio apartment, eating ramen noodles for dinner more nights than I care to admit. But it was worth it. The house isn't anything fancy. A modest three-bedroom ranch in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown. But it's mine. The mortgage paperwork has my name on it, not my parents', not my sister's. Just mine. For the first time in my adult life, I have something that's completely, undeniably mine. I spent the entire weekend cleaning and preparing for the housewarming party I planned for Sunday. I wanted everything to be perfect. I bought enough food for 15 people, set up a playlist of everyone's favorite songs, even bought those fancy paper plates that don't look like paper plates. My mom always commented on details like that. I called everyone personally to invite them. My parents seemed genuinely excited when I told them about the party. "We'll be there, honey," my mother said. "We're so proud of you." My younger sister said she wouldn't miss it for the world. Even my uncle and aunt promised to come by. Sunday arrived, and I had everything ready by 2 o'clock. The house smelled amazing from the barbecue I'd been preparing since morning. I made my famous potato salad, the one everyone always requests at family gatherings. The cooler was stocked with everyone's preferred beverages. I even had a small speech prepared, nothing dramatic, just a few words about how grateful I was to have their support. 2 o'clock came and went. Then 3, then 4. I kept checking my phone, thinking maybe I'd missed a message about traffic or a delay. Nothing. I tried calling my parents. Straight to voicemail. My sister's phone did the same thing. By 5 o'clock, I was sitting alone on my new porch, eating a burger that had gone cold, watching the sun start to set over my empty driveway. The potato salad sat untouched in the kitchen. The playlist I'd spent hours curating played to an audience of one. That's when my phone finally rang. "Hello." I answered, hoping to hear an apology and explanation. "Son, we need to talk." It was my father's voice, serious and businesslike. The tone he used when he was about to ask me for money. "Where were you today?" "The party started 4 hours ago." "Listen, we're at the dealership. Your sister just bought her new car, and we're celebrating. You understand." I understood, all right. I understood that my sister's spontaneous car purchase, probably financed with money she didn't have, was more important than the housewarming party I'd been planning for weeks. I understood that while I was setting up folding chairs and arranging food platters, they were at a Chevrolet dealership taking selfies with a vehicle that would depreciate by thousands of dollars the moment it left the lot. "We need to talk," he repeated. "Tomorrow night. It's important." "About what?" "Just, we'll discuss it tomorrow." "Congratulations on the house, by the way." The line went dead. I sat there in my lawn chair, surrounded by enough food to feed a small army, listening to the sound of absolutely nothing. My new neighborhood was quiet on Sunday evenings. Kids were probably inside, finishing homework. Parents were preparing for the week ahead. Normal families doing normal family things. I'd always been the responsible one. The one who had a job at 16, who paid my parents $300 a month rent from the time I turned 18, who co-signed loans and covered emergency expenses when things got tight. I was the safety net that made everyone else's spontaneity possible. But apparently, that didn't warrant showing up to my housewarming party. I packed up the untouched food and put it in the refrigerator. Tomorrow I'd be eating leftover potato salad for lunch, while my sister would probably be posting Instagram stories of her new car. The car that was definitely more photogenic than my three-bedroom ranch, with a slightly outdated kitchen and the yard that needed work. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed in my new house, I couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow's conversation with my father was going to change everything. And not in a good way. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept thinking about that phone call and the way my father said, "We need to talk." In our family, those 4 words never led to anything good. Monday dragged by at work. I kept checking my phone, half expecting more details about this mysterious conversation, but nothing came. Just a few texts from coworkers asking how the housewarming party went. I gave them the standard, "It was great, thanks for asking" response. No point in explaining that I'd spent the evening eating alone while my family celebrated my sister's impulse purchase. At 6 o'clock sharp, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see my parents standing on my porch, both dressed more formally than usual. My father wore his church shirt, the one he reserved for important occasions. My mother carried her large purse, the one she brought when she expected to stay somewhere for a while. "Come in," I said, opening the door. They stepped inside and looked around with an expression I couldn't quite read. It wasn't admiration for what I'd accomplished. It was more like assessment, like they were evaluating the property rather than visiting their son's new home. Nice place, my father said, but his tone was distracted. Good bones. Solid investment. We settled in the living room. I bought a couch the week before. Nothing expensive, just something functional from a furniture store having a clearance sale. My parents sat on one end while I took the armchair across from them. Where's your sister? I asked. She's busy with her new car, my mother replied. Getting insurance sorted out, registration, all those details. Right. The details that someone else would inevitably help her handle, just like always. My father cleared his throat and leaned forward. Son, we came here because we want to discuss your future and how this house fits into the family's plans. My future? And what family plans? You've done well for yourself, he continued, ignoring my questions. 29 years old, homeowner, steady job. But success comes with responsibilities. I felt my stomach tighten. What kind of responsibilities? My mother jumped in. Your sister is starting her business venture. You know how entrepreneurial she is. And with your father thinking about early retirement, we need to be smart about our resources. Your resources? Family resources, my father corrected. We're all in this together. We always have been. They exchanged a look that I recognized from childhood, the look that meant they'd already discussed this extensively and had reached conclusions without my input. The thing is, my father said, this house represents opportunity. Not just for you, but for all of us. I stared at them. Opportunity for what? Well, there's the address for starters. Your sister needs a permanent address for her business registration. Something more professional than our house. This would be perfect. You want her to use my address for her business? It makes sense, my mother said. She's family, and there are tax advantages to consider. My father nodded. Speaking of taxes, we've been thinking about the future. Estate planning, that sort of thing. It might be wise to add my name to the deed. For legal protection, you understand. In case anything happens to you. The room felt like it was shrinking. Add your name to my deed? It's just smart planning, he said. And there's something else. Your sister's business idea is solid, but she needs startup capital. About $80,000. With your equity in this place, you could easily get a home equity loan. I sat there speechless, processing what I was hearing. They wanted me to put my sister's business address on my property, add my father to my deed, and borrow $80,000 against my house to fund her entrepreneurial dreams. You want me to mortgage my house for her business? It's an investment in the family, my mother said. She'll pay it back once the business takes off. What kind of business? They looked at each other again. She's still finalizing the details, my father said vaguely. But she's always been good with people. Sales, marketing, that type of thing. I felt something shift inside me. A clarity I'd never experienced before. These weren't parents visiting their son's new home to celebrate his achievement. These are people who saw my house as a resource to be leveraged for someone else's benefit. No, I said quietly. What? My mother asked. No, I'm not putting her business at my address. I'm not adding anyone to my deed. And I'm not taking out a loan for her business venture. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. Son, my father said slowly, I think you misunderstand what family means. I understand exactly what it means. The question is whether you do. That night, after they left, disappointed and clearly frustrated, I sat in my empty house and realized something important. For the first time in my adult life, I had said no to my family's demands, and the world hadn't ended. But I had a feeling this was just the beginning. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what my father had said. I think you misunderstand what family means. His words kept echoing in my head, making me question everything I thought I knew about our relationships. But then I started remembering, really remembering. I was 14 when my parents first asked me to pay rent. Not asked, told. You're eating our food, using our electricity, taking up space, my father had explained. Time to contribute. $300 a month from my part-time job at the local grocery store, bagging groceries and collecting shopping cart from the parking lot in all kinds of weather. I remember being proud, actually, proud that they trusted me with that responsibility. Proud that I was mature enough to handle it. I felt like I was becoming a real adult. My sister was 11 then. When she turned 18 6 years later, I waited for my parents to have the same conversation with her. I even mentioned it to my mother once, casually asking when she planned to talk to her about contributing to household expenses. Oh, honey, my mother had laughed. She's still figuring out what she wants to do with her life. We don't want to put that kind of pressure on her. My sister is 26 now. She's never paid rent, never been asked to. I was 17 when our car broke down, and my parents needed help with the down payment on a replacement. Just until we get our tax refund, my father promised. You're so responsible with money. I gave them $800 from my college savings account. The tax refund went toward my sister's spring break trip to Panama City Beach. I was 22 when my mother's credit card debt spiraled out of control. We didn't want to worry you, she explained, but we're in a tight spot. I co-signed a consolidation loan for $12,000. My credit score took a hit when they were late on payments twice, but they assured me it wouldn't happen again. I was 24 when my sister wanted to move out of the house, but couldn't afford security deposits. She just needed a little help getting started, my parents explained. I covered her first month's rent and deposit at a nice apartment complex across town. She lived there for 8 months before moving back home because living alone was too expensive. I was 26 when my father's business had a slow period and they were behind on the mortgage. Just until things pick up, he said. I gave them $3,000, money I'd been saving for my own place. Things did pick up, eventually, but somehow that $3,000 was never mentioned again. Throughout all of this, my sister lived rent-free, debt-free, responsibility-free. When she wanted something, a new laptop, a vacation, help with car payments, my parents found a way to provide it. When I wanted something, I saved up and bought it myself. I became the family's financial safety net without ever agreeing to the position. Every time there was an emergency, a shortfall, or an opportunity that required cash, everyone looked to me. And I always said yes, because that's what family does, right? That's what the responsible one does. But here's what really bothered me as I lay in bed thinking about all this. I had never been spontaneous a day in my life because I couldn't afford to be. Every dollar I earned was carefully budgeted, carefully saved, carefully allocated. I drove the same reliable sedan for 8 years because I couldn't justify the expense of something nicer. I lived in that cramped studio apartment because I was saving for this house. Meanwhile, my sister changed cars like other people change clothes. She took weekend trips to places I'd never been. She tried new restaurants, bought designer clothes, lived like someone without a care in the world. Because I was her safety net, and my parents were her safety net, and between all of us, she never had to worry about consequences. I was the one who made everyone else's freedom possible. When I was saving for this house, do you know what my family's reaction was? Not pride or excitement. It was concern about how my selfishness might affect them. My mother actually said that to me. I hope this house thing isn't going to make you selfish. Selfish. For wanting to own something that was mine. I thought about my sister's new car. I wonder how she'd managed the down payment, who had co-signed the loan, whether my parents had helped with the monthly payments. I wondered if anyone had asked her to contribute to the household expenses, or if she was still living in her childhood bedroom rent-free while I was paying a mortgage on my own place. I thought about yesterday's conversation and how my parents had walked into my house with a list of demands disguised as suggestions. They hadn't come to celebrate with me. They hadn't come to see what I'd accomplished. They'd come to figure out how my achievement could benefit everyone else. That's when I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I wasn't a son to them. I was a resource, a solution to other people's problems. The reliable one who could always be counted on to sacrifice his own goals for the greater good of the family. And my sister wasn't the baby who needed protection and support. She was a 26-year-old woman who had learned that other people would always handle her responsibilities if she just waited long enough. This house represented something they couldn't control or access or leverage for their own purposes. And that terrified them. For the first time in 15 years, I had said no. And I was starting to understand that it needed to happen a lot more often. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee and opened the folder where I kept all my house buying documents. I wanted to remind myself of exactly what I'd accomplished, because last night's conversation had left me feeling like maybe I was being unreasonable. For years and 2 months. That's how long it took me to save for this house. I pulled out my old bank statements and traced the journey with my finger. Month after month of deposits for my salary, minus rent to my parents, minus groceries, minus the bare minimum for survival. Every statement showed the same pattern. Money in, necessities out, remainder into the house fund. I remember the exact moment I decided to buy a house. I was 25, still living in that studio apartment that smelled like the Indian restaurant downstairs, and my sister had just announced she was taking a 2-week vacation to Costa Rica with her friends. When I asked how she could afford it, my mother said, "Oh, we're helping her out. She deserves a break." That night, I calculated how much I'd given to my family over the years. Between the rent, the loans, the emergencies, and the temporary help, it was over $30,000. Enough for a down payment on a modest house. Money that had disappeared into the black hole of other people's priorities. That's when I made the decision. I was going to buy a house, and I was going to do it entirely on my own. I opened a separate savings account at a different bank. Every month, after I paid my rent to my parents and covered my basic expenses, whatever was left went into that account. I picked up weekend shifts at a warehouse job, loading trucks from 6 a.m. to noon on Saturdays and Sundays. The extra money went into the house fund. I stopped eating out completely, groceries only, and I planned every meal to minimize waste. I canceled my cable subscription, my gym membership, my music streaming service. I drove my car until the air conditioning died, then drove it without air conditioning for another year. Every dollar saved was a dollar closer to my goal. When my coworkers went out for happy hour, I went home and researched real estate markets. When my sister posted photos of her latest shopping spree, I researched mortgage rates and down payment requirements. When my parents hinted about needing help with this expense or that emergency, I started deflecting rather than automatically reaching for my wallet. Things are tight right now, I'd say, which was true. Things were tight because I was finally prioritizing my own future. I remember the first time I looked at houses with a real estate agent. I felt like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't, someone who deserved to own property, someone whose dreams mattered enough to spend money on. The agent asked what my budget was, and I gave her a number that represented 4 years of sacrifice. I looked at 43 houses before I found this one. Some were too expensive, some were in terrible neighborhoods, some needed too much work. But this one felt right the moment I walked in. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a decent kitchen, a yard where I could maybe plant a garden someday. Nothing fancy, but solid and well-maintained in mine. The mortgage application process was terrifying. I kept expecting someone to tell me there had been a mistake, that I didn't qualify, that people like me didn't get to buy houses. But my credit score was excellent. All those years of responsible financial behavior had paid off. My debt-to-income ratio was perfect because I never splurged on anything expensive. My employment history was stable because I'd worked at the same company for 6 years. The down payment came from my secret savings account. $20,000 that represented every weekend shift, every skipped dinner out, every time I chose to stay home instead of spending money on entertainment. While I got the keys, I sat in my car in the driveway and cried. Not because I was overwhelmed or sad, but because I had done something entirely for myself for the first time in my adult life. Something nobody could take credit for or claim ownership of or leverage for their own benefit. That's what made yesterday's conversation so infuriating. My parents had looked at this house, this thing I'd sacrificed for, saved for, dreamed about for 4 years, and immediately started calculating how it could be useful to them. They wanted to put my sister's business address here, which would mean a constant stream of mail that wasn't mine, potential liability issues if her business ran into legal problems, and the loss of privacy in my own home. They wanted to add my father to the deed for protection, which would give him partial ownership of something he contributed nothing toward. It would also mean I couldn't sell or refinance without his signature, effectively making him a co-owner of my independence. They wanted me to borrow $80,000 against the equity I'd built through my down payment and sacrifice to fund a business venture my sister hadn't even fully explained yet. $80,000. More than twice what I'd saved for 4 years to buy this place. I looked around my kitchen, at the coffee maker I'd bought on sale, at the small table I'd assembled myself, at the window that looked out onto my own yard. This house wasn't just a property. It was proof that I could take care of myself, that I could build something through my own efforts, that I didn't need to depend on anyone else's approval or assistance. And they wanted to turn it into a family resource. I thought about my sister's new car, probably financed at a ridiculous interest rate, probably with my parents as co-signers. I thought about how she'd never had to save for anything, never had to sacrifice, never had to choose between what she wanted and what she needed. I thought about how my family's first instinct when they saw my success wasn't to celebrate it, but to figure out how to use it. That's when I knew, with absolute certainty, that my answer would remain no. Not because I didn't love my family, but because I finally understood the difference between supporting people and enabling them. And I was done being an enabler. 3 days passed without any contact from my family. I started to think maybe they'd gotten the message, that my firm no had been clear enough to end the discussion. I should have known better. Thursday evening, I was grilling chicken in my backyard when I heard cars pulling into my driveway. Plural. I looked through the kitchen window and saw both my parents' car and my sister's brand new sedan, a gleaming white SUV that probably cost more than I make in 6 months. They didn't ring the doorbell. They walked around to the backyard like they owned the place. "Smells good," my father said, as if nothing had happened. "Mind if we join you?" Before I could answer, My sister was already sitting at my patio table, spreading papers across the surface like she was setting up for a business meeting. My mother appeared with a folder of her own and a calculator. "What's all this?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew. "We've done some research," my sister announced, "about the business opportunity we discussed. We didn't discuss anything. You made demands, and I said no." My sister smiled. That patronizing smile she perfected as a child when she wanted something. "Just hear us out. I know you're scared about making such a big decision, but we've worked out all the details." She pulled out what looked like a business plan, complete with charts and projections. "It's a digital marketing consultancy," she explained. "Small businesses need help with social media, website design, online advertising. The market is huge. Do you have experience in digital marketing?" "I have a natural talent for understanding people and what they want. Plus, I took an online course last month." An online course. She wanted me to mortgage my house based on an online course. My father leaned forward. "The numbers work out perfectly. 80,000 initial investment, projected return of 30% in the first year alone." I picked up the business plan and flipped through it. It was impressive-looking, professionally formatted, full of industry buzzwords and optimistic projections. It was also completely unrealistic. "These revenue projections," I said, pointing to a chart. "You're expecting to land 20 new clients in your first month of operation?" "I'm very confident about that," my sister said. "I already have some leads." "What leads?" "Well, potential leads. People I've talked to who seemed interested." My mother jumped in before I could ask for specifics. "The point is, this is a real opportunity. Not just for her, but for all of us. When the business takes off, everyone benefits." I set the papers down. "And if it doesn't take off? If she can't find clients? Or if the market isn't as easy as she thinks? What happens to the $80,000 I borrowed against my house?" "That's why we need to add your father to the deed," my mother explained. "For protection. If something goes wrong with the business, we don't want you to lose everything. So let me get this straight. You want me to take out a loan for $80,000, give that money to fund her business, add Dad to my deed so I'm not the sole owner anymore, and use my address for her business registration. And this protects me how exactly?" My father pulled out another set of papers. "We've already talked to a lawyer about the deed transfer. It's very simple, just a few signatures." "You talked to a lawyer? About my property?" "Without asking me. We're trying to be proactive," my sister said, "to make this as easy as possible for you." I looked at all of them, sitting around my patio table, surrounded by documents they prepared without my knowledge or consent, discussing plans for my house and my money as if I were just a signature away from compliance. "The business address thing," I said slowly. "What exactly does that involve?" My sister brightened. "Oh, it's perfect. I'd use this address for all business correspondence, client meetings, delivery of office supplies. It gives the business a professional home base. Client meetings in my house. Just occasionally. Most of the work would be remote, but sometimes face-to-face meetings are more effective. Don't worry, I wouldn't disrupt your space too much." "And the $80,000? When exactly would that be paid back?" "Well, that depends on cash flow," she said, "but definitely within 5 years. Maybe sooner if the business really takes off. Maybe sooner, or maybe never." The mood shifted abruptly. My father's expression hardened. "Son, we're not asking for charity here. This is an investment opportunity that benefits everyone. Everyone except me, apparently. You be part owner of a successful business," my mother said. "Think about the long-term potential. I'd be part owner of an idea based on an online course, run by someone with no business experience, funded entirely by my house." My sister's smile finally faded. "I can't believe you're being so selfish about this." "Selfish?" "Yes, selfish. You have this big house all to yourself. You have stable income. You have equity you're not even using. Meanwhile, I'm trying to build something meaningful, and you won't even help your own sister." "Help? You want me to risk my house for your business idea?" "It's not risk if you believe in family," my father said. "Family means supporting each other's dreams. Family also means not pressuring someone to mortgage their home for an untested business plan." They looked at each other with expressions I recognized from childhood, the look that meant they were about to pull out the heavy artillery. "We're disappointed in you," my mother said quietly. "This isn't the son we raised. The son you raised would have already signed these papers without asking questions." "Exactly," my father said. That's when I realized this wasn't a discussion. This was an ambush, carefully planned and executed. They'd brought lawyers into it, created professional-looking documents, prepared responses to my objections. They'd expected me to be overwhelmed by the presentation and just go along with it. They'd never considered the possibility that I might actually think it through and say no. I need you all to leave, I said. What? My sister asked. Take your papers, get off my property, and don't come back until you can visit without an agenda. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then my father gathered up the documents with sharp, angry movements. You're making a mistake, he said. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. As I watched them walk back to their cars, I realized something important. This wasn't going to end here. They'd invested too much time and energy into this plan to give up after one rejection. This was just the opening move. I was going to need to be a lot more careful from now on. I didn't sleep well that night. Every sound outside made me wonder if they were coming back. Every car that passed seemed to slow down in front of my house. By morning, I felt exhausted and paranoid, but also strangely liberated. For the first time in my adult life, I had said no to my family and meant it. Not no, but maybe later or no, unless it's really important. Just no. The phone call started at 7 a.m. Honey, I think there was a misunderstanding yesterday, my mother began. We weren't trying to pressure you. We just want what's best for everyone. What's best for me is keeping my house in my name and not borrowing money I can't afford to lose. But you can afford it. You have equity, you have steady income. The payments would be manageable. Mom, the payments would be my responsibility. If her business fails, I'm still stuck with $80,000 in debt. Her business won't fail. She's very determined. Determination doesn't guarantee success. There was a long pause. I never thought you'd be so unsupportive of your sister's dreams. I'm not unsupportive. I'm realistic. There's a difference. She hung up on me. 20 minutes later, my sister called. I can't believe you're doing this to me, she said without preamble. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm protecting my own interests. Your interests? What about family? What about loyalty? What about personal responsibility? What about not expecting other people to finance your dreams? I would do this for you if the situation were reversed. No, you wouldn't, because you've never done anything like this for anyone, including yourself. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you paid for something yourself without help from mom and dad or me? When's the last time you saved up for something you wanted instead of just asking for it? Silence. Then, I can't talk to you when you're being like this. She hung up too. My father's call came during my lunch break at work. Son, I think you need to reconsider this decision. We're family. Family sticks together. Family also respects boundaries. What boundaries? We're not strangers. We're your parents. You're my parents, but this is my house. My mortgage. My risk. Risk? It's an investment. A good investment. Dad, she took an online course in digital marketing. One course. And based on that, you want me to borrow $80,000. She's smart. She'll figure it out. With my house as collateral while she figures it out. His tone shifted to something I never heard before. Cold. Calculating. Let me ask you something. Over the years, how much money have we lent you? How many times have we helped you out? You've never lent me money, Dad. I've lent money to you. Multiple times. Money I never got back. That's not how I remember it. I have bank records if you'd like to refresh your memory. You're keeping track of money between family. Someone has to. He was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, I don't know who you become, but it's not the son I raised. The son you raised would have signed those papers without reading them. Yes, he would have, because he understood what family means. And what does family mean to you, Dad? It means sacrifice. It means putting the needs of the group ahead of your own selfish desires. Whose needs? Because it seems like I'm always the one sacrificing for everyone else's needs. That's what the oldest child does. That's your role. Your role. Like I was playing a character in their family drama instead of living my own life. What if I don't want that role anymore? Then you're not the man I thought you were. After he hung up, I sat in my car in the work parking lot, tried to process what had just happened. In the span of 3 phone calls, my family had made it clear that my value to them was entirely conditional on my willingness to serve their needs. When I wouldn't finance my sister's business with my house, I became unsupportive. When I pointed out that I was the one taking all the risk, I became selfish. When I mentioned that I'd been the family's financial safety net for years without recognition or repayment, I became petty and money-obsessed. That evening, I found a handwritten letter taped to my front door. You're breaking our family apart. It began in my sister's familiar handwriting. I've dreamed about starting this business for months. The letter was 3 pages long, written in my sister's dramatic handwriting with multiple underlines for emphasis. I read it sitting on my front steps as the sun set behind my neighbor's house. You're breaking our family apart, it began. I've dreamed about starting this business for months. I put so much research and planning into it. This was supposed to be my chance to finally make something of myself. And you're destroying it because you're jealous that I'm trying to be successful. Jealous. That was a new angle. Mom and Dad are heartbroken. They raised you to be generous and caring. And now you're acting like money is more important than family. Do you know how much it hurts them to see you change like this? Do you even care? The letter went on to detail how disappointed everyone was, how I was setting a terrible example, how my selfishness was affecting the whole family dynamic. It ended with, I hope you can find it in your heart to remember what really matters before it's too late to fix this. I folded the letter and went inside. Within an hour, my phone started buzzing with text messages. My aunt heard about the situation with your sister's business. Really hope you'll reconsider helping her out. My uncle, family first nephew. Hope you remember that. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Your sister called me crying. What's going on with you? They'd launched a full-scale campaign, reaching out to extended family members to pressure me into compliance. Each message was carefully worded to make me seem like the unreasonable one, the family member who was putting money ahead of relationships. I turned off my phone and tried to watch television, but I couldn't concentrate. Every few minutes, I checked to see if there were new messages. There always were. The social media assault started the next day. My sister posted a vague but pointed status update. It's amazing how money can change people. Really shows you who someone truly is when they have the chance to help family and choose not to. Within an hour, it had 12 comments from relatives and family friends expressing sympathy and asking what was wrong. She replied to each one with variations of, I don't want to get into details, but I'm really hurt by someone I trusted. My mother shared an article about the importance of family bonds with the caption, some people forget where they came from. My father posted a photo from my college graduation with the comment, so proud of the man I thought he was becoming. Past tense, the man he thought I was becoming. I stared at that photo for a long time. I remembered that day, how proud I'd felt, how grateful I was for my family's support, how much their approval had meant to me. I was wearing the graduation cap they'd bought me, standing between my parents who had driven 3 hours to attend the ceremony. Now that same photo was being used as a weapon against me. The phone calls from extended family members started that afternoon. Most of them began the same way. I don't want to get involved, but your mother seems really upset about something. I don't want to get involved, but your sister mentioned you might be going through a difficult time. I don't want to get involved, but is everything okay with the family? Each caller had obviously been briefed on the situation, though they pretended to be hearing about it for the first time. Each one expressed concern about family unity and the importance of helping each other out. None of them asked for my side of the story. By Friday evening, I felt like I was under siege. My phone buzzed constantly with messages ranging from disappointed to manipulative to outright hostile. The pressure was relentless and coordinated. That's when I realized something important. This level of organization didn't happen spontaneously. They'd planned this campaign as carefully as they'd planned the business proposal. They'd probably discussed who would call, what they would say, how to maximize the emotional impact. They were treating my refusal like a public relations crisis that needed to be managed. I thought about all the family gatherings where I'd listened to stories about people who'd betrayed the family by putting their own needs first. The cousin who'd moved across the country for a job opportunity and was considered selfish for not staying close to help with his aging parents. The uncle who'd refused to co-sign a loan for his brother and was still talked about with disappointment years later. I was about to become one of those cautionary tales. Saturday morning, I woke up to find my sister's car parked across the street from my house. She was sitting inside, talking on her phone, and occasionally looking toward my front door. When I checked an hour later, she was gone, but she'd left a gift bag hanging on my mailbox. Inside was a coffee mug with "World's Best Brother" printed on it, along with a note, I still believe in the person you used to be. The psychological warfare was impressively thorough. They were attacking from every angle: guilt, shame, nostalgia, family loyalty, social pressure. They turned my refusal to mortgage my house into evidence of moral failure. But here's what surprised me. The more pressure they applied, the clearer my decision became. If my sister's business idea was genuinely solid, she wouldn't need this level of emotional manipulation to secure funding. If my family truly respected me, they would have accepted my no and looked for alternative solutions. Instead, they'd chosen to treat me like an obstacle to overcome rather than a person with legitimate concerns. That night, I drafted a group text to my immediate family. I understand you're disappointed in my decision, but the pressure campaign needs to stop. I'm not changing my mind, and involving other family members isn't going to help anyone. If you want to maintain a relationship with me, we need to find a way to respect each other's boundaries. I stared at the message for 20 minutes before hitting send. The response was immediate: silence. No replies, no acknowledgments, no angry responses. Just silence, which, somehow, felt more ominous than all the pressure that had come before. The silence lasted exactly 3 days. Then I came home from work Tuesday evening to find my father sitting on my front porch steps, holding a spare key I didn't remember giving him. "Where did you get that?" I asked. "Your mother kept the spare from when we helped you move in," he said casually. "Hope you don't mind that I let myself in a wait for you. We need to talk." I minded very much. But what disturbed me more was the realization that my parents had a key to my house and felt entitled to use it whenever they wanted. "Dad, you can't just let yourself into my home." "It's not letting myself in when I have a key. Your mother was worried about you, living here all alone. What if something happened? What if you had an emergency? Then I'd call 911 like any other adult." He stood up and handed me the key. "Fine, but we still need to talk." "About what?" "About the fact that you've been avoiding our calls and texts. About the fact that you've cut yourself off from the family. About the fact that your sister is heartbroken and your mother hasn't slept properly in a week." I unlocked my front door, but didn't invite him inside. "I haven't cut myself off from anyone. I set a boundary, and you've been trying to bulldoze through it." "Boundary? Since when do we have boundaries in this family?" "Since now." He looked genuinely confused, like I'd started speaking a foreign language. "Son, I think you need to talk to someone. This isn't normal behavior." "What isn't normal?" "Wanting to keep my house in my own name. This whole attitude. This selfishness. This obsession with ownership and control. It's not healthy." I stared at him, processing what he'd just said. In his mind, my desire to maintain ownership of the house I'd bought with my own money was an obsession with control. My refusal to mortgage that house for someone else's business was selfishness. My request that they respect my decision was abnormal behavior. "Dad, I need you to leave. We're not done talking." "Yes, we are." That night, I did something I should have done weeks ago. I called a locksmith and had all my locks changed. I also installed a security camera system with motion sensors and night vision. If anyone was going to show up at my house uninvited, I wanted to know about it. Wednesday morning, I called my bank and put a freeze on my credit. If anyone tried to apply for loans using my information, I'd be notified immediately. I also called my mortgage company and added a security phrase that would be required for any inquiries about my account. Thursday, I installed a locking mailbox after coming home to find it hanging open with several pieces of mail scattered on the ground. I couldn't prove my family had gone through my mail, but I wasn't taking any chances. Friday, I called the title company that had handled my house purchase and asked about the process for adding someone to a deed. The representative explained that it would require my signature, notarization, and filing with the county recorder's office. She also mentioned that they'd had someone call earlier in the week asking about my property. Someone called about my property? Who? I can't give out specific information, but they were asking about adding a family member to the deed. We told them it would require your consent and presence. My hand was shaking when I hung up the phone. They were actually trying to manipulate the deed transfer without my knowledge. I spent the weekend researching identity protection services and fraud alerts. I learned about all the ways that family members could potentially access or misuse financial information, and I took steps to protect myself against each possibility. Monday morning, I called my workplace HR department and asked them to add a password to my employment verification process. I also requested that any request for income verification be sent to me in writing before being processed. Tuesday, I opened a new bank account at a different institution and transferred my house fund savings there. If my family had any access to my current bank information, which seemed increasingly possible, I wanted my emergency savings somewhere completely separate. As I took each of these protective measures, I felt two conflicting emotions: relief that I was secure in my financial independence and sadness that I needed to protect myself from my own family. Wednesday evening, I was testing my new security cameras when I noticed my sister's car parked at the end of my street. She was just sitting there, engine running, occasionally talking on her phone. When I walked outside to check my mailbox, she drove away. Thursday morning, there was a business card tucked under my windshield wiper. Family Financial Planning Services. We help families make smart money decisions together. On the back, someone had written, "Free consultation. Your family deserves financial harmony." I kept the card as evidence of their escalating campaign. Friday, I received a certified letter that required my signature. It was from a law office I'd never heard of offering mediation services for family financial disputes. The letter suggested that many family conflicts could be resolved through professional mediation and compromise. They were bringing lawyers into this now. That weekend, I sat in my living room, surrounded by all the documentation I'd accumulated. The security camera footage of my sister surveilling my house, the business card someone had left on my car, the certified letter from the law office, the phone records showing dozens of calls from family members. I realized I was building a case file against my own family. But I also realized something else. Every protective measure I'd taken had been necessary. The call to the title company proved they were trying to circumvent my consent. The credit freeze had already blocked one suspicious inquiry. The security cameras had documented surveillance of my property. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being prudent. Sunday night, I drafted an email to my entire family. I've discovered that someone has been making inquiries about my property and financial accounts without my permission. I've taken steps to protect my assets and privacy. Any further attempts to access my financial information or property records will be considered harassment. I'm willing to maintain family relationships, but only if you can respect basic boundaries and legal limits. I hesitated for an hour before sending it. Once I hit send, there would be no pretending this was just a family disagreement. I'd be formally accusing them of potential fraud and harassment. But they crossed that line first. I was just acknowledging the reality of what was already happening. I sent the email and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring whatever response they decided on, but tonight, I was going to sleep peacefully in my own house, protected by locks they couldn't bypass and security systems they didn't know about. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe in my own home. My email had the opposite effect of what I'd hoped for. Instead of backing down, my family escalated their efforts with a desperation that honestly frightened me. Monday morning, I woke up to find my driveway blocked by my father's truck. He was standing beside it, arms crossed, clearly intending to prevent me from leaving for work. When I walked outside, he handed me a folder thick with documents. Legal papers, he announced. Power of attorney forms, estate planning documents, family trust paperwork. You need to sign these. I need to go to work, Dad. This is more important than work. This is about family security. I flipped through the papers quickly. Hidden among legitimate-looking estate planning documents was a power of attorney form that would give him legal authority over my financial decisions, and a family trust agreement that would effectively transfer ownership of my house to a trust controlled by my parents. I'm not signing any of this. You don't even know what it is. I know enough. Move your truck. Not until we resolve this situation. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Dad, if you don't move your truck right now, I'm calling the police and reporting that you're preventing me from leaving my own property. He stared at me for a long moment, then got in his truck and drove away. But not before saying, I don't know who you are anymore. That afternoon, I got a call from my mortgage company's customer service department. Mr. Anderson, we received a call from someone claiming to be your father, asking about adding his name to your mortgage account. We told him that would require your written authorization and in-person verification, but I wanted to make sure you were aware of the inquiry. Thank you for calling. I did not authorize that request, and I do not want anyone added to my account under any circumstances. Understood. We'll make a note in your file. You might also want to consider adding additional security measures to your account. After work, I drove to the county recorder's office to check if anyone had attempted to file any documents related to my property. The clerk was helpful and thorough, searching through recent filings for my address. Nothing's been filed, she said, but we did have someone come in last week asking about the process for transferring property between family members. They had your address and asked a lot of specific questions about adding someone to an existing deed. What kind of questions? Whether it could be done without the current owner present, what documents would be required, how long the process takes. We explained that any deed transfer requires the signature and consent of all current owners. Did they give a name? They said they were asking for a friend who was considering adding their adult child to the deed for estate planning purposes. I thanked her and left, feeling sick to my stomach. They were actively researching ways to take partial ownership of my house, either through legal manipulation or outright fraud. Wednesday brought a new tactic: emotional warfare through extended family. My grandmother called, crying, "Sweetheart, I don't understand what's happening with our family. Your parents are so upset, and your sister is just heartbroken. Can't you find some way to work this out?" "Grandma, they want me to mortgage my house to give them $80,000. Well, family has to help families sometimes. Would you mortgage your house for someone else's business idea? That's different. I'm old. You're young and strong and successful." My aunt called an hour later. "I hear you're having some disagreements with your parents. You know, when I was starting my catering business, your father helped me with a loan. Family supporting family. That's how we all succeed. Did you put his house up as collateral for your loan?" "That's not the point. The point is that we help each other. My cousin called that evening. Dude, what's going on? My mom says you're being really difficult about something with your sister's business. Did she tell you what they're asking me to do? Something about an investment? Come on, man. It's your sister. She's trying to build something for herself. With my house as collateral. Oh, long pause. She didn't mention that part. Thursday morning, I arrived at work to find my sister sitting in the parking lot. She followed me to the building entrance, crying and pleading. Please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I've listened multiple times. The answer is still no. You're ruining my life. This business is my only chance to make something of myself. There are other ways to get business funding. Like what? I don't have perfect credit like you do. I don't have savings. I don't have rich friends. You could get a business loan from a bank. They want collateral too, and a proven track record, and a detailed business plan. Then maybe you should develop those things before starting a business. She stared at me like I'd suggested she climb Mount Everest. I can't believe you're being this cruel to your own sister. That evening, I found a manila envelope taped to my front door. Inside were printouts of social media posts about me, screenshots from family members discussing my selfish behavior and money obsession. There were also photographs, my house from various angles, my car in the driveway, me leaving for work in the morning. They were documenting my daily routine and sharing private family business online. Friday brought the most disturbing development yet. I came home to find my neighbor waiting in his yard. Hey neighbor, had some people come by asking questions about you today. What kind of questions? Whether you lived alone, what kind of hours you kept, if you had any financial problems. They said they were from some kind of family services organization and they were concerned about your well-being. What did you tell them? That you seemed fine to me, but if they were concerned, they should talk to you directly. Was I right to do that? Absolutely. Thank you for telling me. They asked a lot of questions about your house too. Whether you'd made any improvements, if you'd mentioned financial difficulties, stuff like that. Seemed kind of invasive for a wellness check. That night, I sat down and documented everything that had happened since I'd refused to sign over my house. The blocked driveway, the mortgage company inquiry, the county recorder visit, the orchestrated family pressure campaign, the surveillance, the neighbor questioning. What I was looking at was a systematic attempt to either coerce me into compliance or gather information that could be used against me. It had moved far beyond family disagreement into something that felt genuinely threatening. I called my bank's fraud prevention line and reported the suspicious activities. I called my employer's security department and warned them that someone might try to access my employment information. I called my insurance company and added additional protection against identity theft. Then I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I called a lawyer specializing in family law and harassment cases. I need to understand my legal options, I told him. My family is pressuring me to sign over partial ownership of my house. And when I refused, they started what I can only describe as a harassment campaign. Tell me everything, he said. By the time I finished explaining the situation, he was taking detailed notes. You're dealing with financial elder abuse tactics being used by younger family members, he said. It's more common than you'd think. The good news is that you've documented everything well. The bad news is that it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. How much worse? People who are willing to go this far usually don't stop until they're forced to stop. I hung up feeling vindicated that my concerns were legitimate, but terrified about what might come next. Saturday morning, I woke up to find my sister's car parked in my driveway again. But this time, she wasn't alone. My parents were there too, along with someone I didn't recognize, an older man in a suit carrying a briefcase. They were all standing on my front porch, waiting for me to answer the door I had no intention of opening. I watched them through my security cameras for people standing on my porch at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. The stranger in the suit kept checking his watch and adjusting his briefcase. My parents looked determined. My sister looked desperate. They rang the doorbell repeatedly. They knocked. They called my name. I didn't answer. After 20 minutes, the man in the suit said something to my parents and walked back to his car, a luxury sedan with government plates. A notary public, I realized. They'd brought a notary to my house, expecting to pressure me into signing documents on the spot. My family stayed on the porch for another hour, taking turns knocking and calling through the door. Finally, they left, but not before my father slipped a business card under my door. Estate planning attorney, specializing in family asset protection. They were consulting lawyers now. The silence that followed was more unsettling than all their previous pressure tactics combined. No phone calls, no text messages, no surprise visits. No family members parking outside my house or showing up at my workplace. No guilt-inducing social media posts or manipulative letters. Nothing. For 3 days, I heard nothing from any of them. At first, it was a relief. I could go to work without checking for familiar cars in the parking lot. I could come home without wondering what I'd find taped to my door. I could sleep without listening for sounds of someone trying to access my property. But by Thursday, the silence felt ominous. In my experience with my family, silence meant they were planning something bigger. Friday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this the homeowner at 1247 Oak Street?" "Who's asking?" "This is Jennifer from Premier Home Equity Solutions. We understand you might be interested in accessing the equity in your home for investment purposes. I never contacted your company." "Oh, we received a referral from a family member who thought you might benefit from our services. We specialize in helping families leverage real estate assets for business opportunities." "What family member?" "Let me see. The referral came from a woman who said she was your sister. She mentioned you had substantial equity and were considering an investment in her new business." I hung up without responding. An hour later, another call. "This is Mike from Family First Financial. Your father contacted us about helping you set up a family investment trust." I hung up on him too. By the end of the day, I'd received 6 calls from different financial services companies, all claiming that family members had referred them to me for various equity loans, reverse mortgages, and investment schemes. They were shopping around, trying to find a company that would work with them instead of directly with me. Saturday brought a new development. An official-looking letter from something called the Family Mediation Institute. "Dear Mr. Anderson," it began, "we understand that your family is experiencing conflict regarding financial decisions that affect multiple family members. Our institute specializes in helping families resolve disputes through structured mediation and compromise." The letter went on to explain their services, their success rate, and their belief that most family financial conflicts can be resolved when all parties approach the situation with open hearts and willingness to consider creative solutions. At the bottom, in smaller print, "This consultation has been arranged and paid for by your family, who are deeply concerned about maintaining family unity during this difficult time." They'd hired professional mediators. Sunday, I was working in my yard when my neighbor approached me over the fence. "Hey, wanted to give you a heads up. Had some people come by yesterday, asking more questions about you." "The same people as before?" "No, different people. These ones said they were from some kind of mediation service. They wanted to know if I'd noticed any signs of stress or erratic behavior from you lately." "What did you tell them?" "Same thing I told the others, that you seem perfectly normal to me, but if they're concerned, they should talk to you directly." But here's the weird part. They asked if I'd be willing to participate in some kind of neighborhood intervention. Intervention? Yeah. They said sometimes family disputes require community support to resolve. They want to know if I'd be willing to host a meeting here at my house where your family could express their concerns in a neutral environment. I stared at him. "They wanted you to ambush me in your living room." That's exactly what it sounded like to me. I told him no, obviously, but I thought you should know they're trying to recruit your neighbors into whatever this is. That afternoon, I drove past my parents' house, something I hadn't done in weeks. There were 3 cars in the driveway I didn't recognize, and I could see people through the windows in what looked like a meeting. They were organizing. Monday morning, I called the lawyer I'd consulted the week before. "It's escalating," I told him. "They're hiring professionals now, contacting financial services companies, trying to recruit my neighbors." "That's actually good news for your case," he said. "The more elaborate their efforts become, the easier it is to demonstrate a pattern of harassment and coercion. Are you ready to consider a restraining order?" "Against my own family?" "Against people who are harassing you and attempting to access your financial accounts without permission. The fact that they're related to you doesn't give them the right to coerce you into financial decisions." I thought about the notary they'd brought to my house, the companies they were contacting about my equity, the mediation services they were trying to force on me. What would a restraining order actually do? It would legally require them to stop contacting you, stop coming to your property, and stop involving third parties in attempts to pressure you. If they violate the order, they could face criminal charges. And if I don't get a restraining order? This pattern usually continues to escalate until the target either gives in or takes legal action to stop it. Tuesday, I made my decision. I contacted the lawyer and asked him to begin the process for a restraining order against my immediate family members. Wednesday, while I was at work, my security cameras captured something that made my blood run cold. My sister and a man I didn't recognize walking around my house, testing windows and doors, taking photographs of entry points. They were casing my house like burglars. That evening, I called the non-emergency police line and filed a report about suspicious individuals surveilling my property. The officer who took the report asked if I had any idea who they might be. Unfortunately, yes, I said. They're my family. Sir, are you saying your family members were attempting to break into your house? I'm saying they were behaving like people who were planning to break into my house. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a long moment. We'll send an officer by to take a formal statement, he said finally. Thursday night, I sat in my living room reviewing the security camera footage from the past week. I watched my sister and the stranger examining my windows. I watched my father walking the perimeter of my property, pointing at different access points. I watched my mother standing in my driveway, talking on her phone while gesturing toward my house. They weren't just pressuring me anymore. They were planning something. I uploaded all the footage to a secure cloud storage account, emailed copies to my lawyer, and prepared for whatever was coming next. The silence hadn't meant they were giving up. It had meant they were preparing for war. The restraining order was filed on Friday morning. My lawyer explained that it would take several days to process and serve, but that I should document any contact attempts in the meantime. I didn't have to wait long. Friday evening, I came home to find my front door standing open. My blood went ice cold as I approached the house, calling out to see if anyone was inside. No response. I called the police before entering, waiting in my car until they arrived. 2 officers searched the house with me. Nothing appeared to be missing or damaged, but someone had definitely been inside. They'd left evidence of their presence. Family photos arranged on my kitchen table, a handwritten note on my refrigerator, and a small bottle of what looked like cooking oil on my kitchen counter. The note, in my mother's handwriting, read, "We blessed your house with holy oil and prayed for your heart to soften. God wants families to stay together. We love you." They broke into your house to pray? One of the officers asked, clearly trying to process this information. They broke into my house to prove they could. I corrected. The prayer thing is just their justification. The officers took photographs, dusted for fingerprints, and filed a formal breaking and entering report. They also advised me to check for any hidden spare keys or other ways my family might have gained access. That's when I remembered. When I'd changed my locks, I'd forgotten about the spare key hidden under the fake rock near my back patio. I put it there during my first week in the house and completely forgotten about it when I upgraded my security. Sure enough, the fake rock was overturned and the key was gone. Saturday morning brought a new tactic: religious emotional warfare. My grandmother called, crying, "Sweetheart, I had the most terrible dream about you last night. You were all alone and God was crying because you turned away from your family." "Grandma, did someone ask you to call me? Your mother is so worried about your soul. She thinks you've been influenced by worldly materialism." Worldly materialism? This obsession with money and possessions instead of family love. Maybe you should talk to the pastor. An hour later, the pastor from my childhood church called. "Son, I understand you're going through a difficult time with your family. Your parents are heartbroken. They feel like they've lost you to pride and selfishness." "Pastor, did they tell you what they're asking me to do?" "They mentioned that you're unwilling to help your sister with a business opportunity. Sometimes God calls us to sacrifice for our family. They want me to mortgage my house for $80,000 to fund a business based on an online course she took." Long silence. That does seem like a substantial request. "They also want me to add my father to my deed and let her use my address for her business." Another pause. Perhaps there's room for compromise. What would you compromise if someone asked you to mortgage the church to fund a business idea? That's not the same thing, isn't it? Sunday, you tried a different approach. Manufactured emergency. My sister called, sobbing hysterically. "Please, I need your help. I'm at the hospital. There's been an accident." My heart stopped. "What happened? Are you hurt? Please just come. I need you here." Against my better judgment, I drove to the hospital. I found my sister in the emergency room waiting area, not in a hospital bed. She wasn't injured. She wasn't even checked in as a patient. "What happened? Why are you here?" "I had a panic attack," she said. "About the business. About our family falling apart. About you hating me." "I don't hate you." "Then help me. Please. I can't handle this stress much longer." That's when I noticed my parents sitting in the corner of the waiting area. They'd orchestrated this entire scene. "You used a medical emergency to manipulate me into coming here." "It wasn't manipulation," my mother said, approaching us. "She really is having panic attacks. The stress of this situation is making her sick. The stress of trying to pressure me into mortgaging my house. The stress of watching her family reject her dreams." I looked around the waiting room at the real patients and families dealing with actual emergencies, and I felt disgusted with all of us. I'm leaving. Please, my sister grabbed my arm. Just talk to this counselor. He specializes in family financial planning. A man in a suit materialized from nowhere, the same man who'd been on my porch with a notary weeks earlier. I've been working with your family to find solutions that work for everyone, he said, extending his hand. If we could just sit down for a few minutes. I didn't shake his hand. You're not a counselor. You're a financial advisor who stands to make money if I take out a home equity loan. I'm just trying to help a family in crisis. The only crisis here is that I won't give you access to my house. I walked out of the hospital. The restraining order was served Monday morning. By Tuesday, the harassment stopped completely. No more phone calls, no more surprise visits, no more family members recruiting neighbors or coworkers into their campaign. The sudden silence felt surreal after months of constant pressure. Wednesday, I received a single text from my mother. We hope someday you'll understand that we only wanted what was best for the family. Thursday, my sister sent an email. I've decided to pursue other funding options for my business. I hope you're happy. Friday, my father left a voicemail. Your grandmother is disappointed in how this turned out. I hope it was worth it. They were trying to get the last word, to make me feel guilty one final time. But their words felt hollow now. I'd seen too much, documented too much, experienced too much manipulation to be swayed by guilt trips. The following Monday, I did something I hadn't done in months. I invited people over. My co-workers had been asking about my house since I'd bought it, wanting to see what I'd done with the place. I've been putting them off because of the family drama, but now I was ready to share my space with people who actually respected boundaries. This place is incredible, said James from accounting. Admiring the kitchen, I'd slowly been updating. You must be so proud. I was proud. For the first time since buying the house, I could feel proud without worrying about who might try to claim credit or ownership. How long did it take you to save for this? Asked Maria from HR. For years, I said. Every penny. That's amazing dedication. I can barely save for a vacation. We spent the evening grilling burgers in my backyard, the same yard where my family had once spread legal documents across my patio table and demanded my signature. But now it was filled with laughter and normal conversation about work, weekend plans, and shared interests. These people didn't know how much money I made or how much equity I had in my house. They didn't care about my assets or what they could get from me. They were here because they enjoyed my company, and I enjoyed theirs. Over the following weeks, I started building the life I'd always wanted, but had been too busy serving as the family ATM to pursue. I joined a hiking group and discovered I loved exploring trails on weekend mornings. I took a cooking class and learned to make dishes that weren't just about feeding as many people as possible on a tight budget. I started dating someone I met at the cooking class, a teacher named Rebecca, who thought it was impressive that I own my own house, not because of what it represented financially, but because it showed I could set goals and achieve them. My family thinks I'm irresponsible because I spend money on travel instead of saving for a house, she told me over dinner. They don't understand that I value experiences over possessions. Different people have different priorities, I said. There's nothing wrong with either approach as long as you're not expecting other people to fund your choices. Exactly. I would never ask my brother to co-sign a loan for my vacation fund. It was such a simple concept. Personal responsibility for personal choices, but it felt revolutionary after years of being treated like the family's financial backup plan. 3 months after the restraining order, I ran into my uncle at the grocery store. He'd been one of the family members recruited to pressure me during the campaign. How are you doing? He asked awkwardly. I'm good. Really good. Your parents miss you. They know how to reach me if they want to have a relationship that doesn't involve my bank account. He looked uncomfortable. Your sister's business didn't work out. I'm sorry to hear that. She couldn't get funding anywhere else. Turns out banks want a lot more documentation than family members do. That's usually how business loans work. She's moved back in with your parents. Again, I felt a flicker of sympathy for my sister, but it was tempered by the knowledge that this pattern would continue until she learned to support herself. I hope she figures things out, I said, and I meant it. Do you think you'll ever, work things out with them? I'm open to having a relationship with them, I said, but it would have to be a different kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect instead of financial obligation. 6 months later, I organized a proper housewarming party, the one I should have had from the beginning. My living room was full of friends, coworkers, neighbors, and new people I'd met through my various activities. Rebecca helped me organize everything, and we cooked together in my kitchen while our guests enjoy my backyard. This is what a housewarming party is supposed to feel like, said my neighbor. the same one who'd protected me from my family's manipulation attempts. Relax, I asked. Genuine. Like people are here because they want to celebrate with you, not because they want something from you. As the evening wound down and people started to leave, I stood in my living room looking around at the aftermath of a successful party. Empty plates, wine glasses on coffee tables, business card from new friends, and the comfortable mess that comes from people actually enjoying themselves in your space. This house had become what I'd always dreamed it would be, a home where I felt safe, proud, and free to build the life I wanted. My parents never called. My sister never reached out. But that was okay. I'd learned the difference between family and people who love you. Family can be the people who share your DNA, but they can also be the people who respect your boundaries, celebrate your achievements, and support your happiness without expecting anything in return. My real family was sitting in my living room that night, sharing stories and planning future gatherings. They were the hiking group that had become weekend adventure partners. They were Rebecca, who understood that independence and love weren't mutually exclusive. They were my neighbors who'd protected me when my biological family had tried to manipulate me. A year later, I got a text from my grandmother. "I drove by your house today. You've done beautiful work on the garden." I texted back, "Thank you. You're welcome to visit anytime if you want to see it up close." She came by the following Sunday, alone. We had coffee on my back patio and talked about plants, the weather, and her memories of her own first house. "I understand why you did what you did," she said as she was leaving. "Your grandfather and I went through something similar with his family when we were young. Sometimes you have to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity." Did you ever regret choosing dignity? Never. But I did regret how long it took me to realize I had a choice. As I write this, it's been 2 years since I bought my house. My sister attempted 2 more business ventures, both funded by my parents, both unsuccessful. She's currently living in their basement and working part-time retail. My parents refinanced their house to cover her debts and are now struggling with their own retirement planning. I feel sad about their financial situation, but I don't feel guilty. Those were their choices, made with full knowledge of the consequences. Meanwhile, Rebecca and I are planning to move in together next year. We're discussing whether to live in my house or find a new place that belongs to both of us. It's a wonderful problem to have, choosing between good options based on love and practical considerations, without any coercion or manipulation. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd said yes to my family's demands 2 years ago. I'd probably be struggling with an $80,000 debt from my sister's failed business, sharing ownership of my house with my father, and still serving as the family's financial safety net. Instead, I'm planning a future with someone who loves me for who I am, not what I can provide. I'm surrounded by friends who celebrate my successes instead of trying to profit from them. I own my home completely, and I've learned that the most valuable thing you can own is your own self-respect. The house is still modest, a 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet neighborhood. But it's mine, completely and legally and emotionally mine. And that makes it the most valuable thing I've ever owned. Not because of its market value, but because of what it represents. The courage to say no, the strength to maintain boundaries, and the wisdom to understand that real love doesn't come with financial strings attached. Every morning when I wake up in my own house, in my own bed, surrounded by my own choices, I'm reminded that I made the right decision. Not just about the money, but about the kind of person I wanted to be and the kind of life I wanted to live. Some people might say I chose money over family, but I know the truth. I chose self-respect over manipulation, boundaries over exploitation, and my own future over everyone else's immediate wants. And I've never been happier.